sort of rely on the warrior not drawing into any life gain or any sort of like removal for your early creatures, I guess, to sort of pick away at the armor.
Yeah.
And you also have to draw into basically the perfect curve. You need Alexstrasza really early. You need to get a lot of extra burn with Archmage Antonice. It's just really tough.
Yeah, I think like before Blackrock Mountain, the matchup was like 95.5%, which is probably the
biggest disparity.
Biggest disparity. And but after Blackrock Mountain, a lot of players have been saying it's closer to like 80-20 now because of Emperor Thorazane.
Yeah.
And because you can get so many fireballs against your opponent that your opponent can't deal with. And that's exactly what happened from Amaz versus Ignite, like the series that we both referenced. Emperor Thorazane came down, Archmage Antonice came down, a lot of spells were used, and then Amaz actually couldn't deal with the Archmage, so he eventually lost. Now we're going to see next match, unfortunately, it's not going to be Freeze Mage versus Controller, it's going to be Troll Warrior versus Priest.
Oh yes, the most wonderful matchup in Hearthstone. These ones can take a while. These ones can be real slugfest. Now, Priest decks have actually sort of changed quite a bit. Control Warrior has pretty much stayed the same. There's some cards that they switch out, but Priest, I think, at least the Priest that I'm familiar with, has changed a lot. There's the Chinese Priest, which runs the Death Lords combined with the Velen's Chosen. There's the Priest that Chalky's been running that he dubs the like Mind Control Priest that runs like double Shadow Madness, double Cabal, double Shrinkmeister, basically anything that you can use to mind control creatures.
And I believe that list is inspired by Kalento, and Kalento's been winning so many tournaments with that list.
Creature heavy. He actually ran it in the Legendary Series the week that he won, which was a couple weeks ago. You look at it, and usually you watch Priest and you're like, oh wow, his hand is filled with spells. But this one's got so many creatures. It's got like Recombobulator, Shrinkmeisters, double Cabal. It feels a lot different. But I'm curious to see which Priest this is.
Well, the Light Bomb, like the Death Lord Priest, it tries to take Priest in one direction, which is a direction that tries to not use as many combos as possible. Whereas like the list you're referring to, Chalky, he goes all the way in the other direction.
Yeah.
Pretty much it's like, okay, Priest, the best thing about Priest is the awesome combos I can do. Let's do that.
Yeah. And he's pulled off so many combos, and I love that deck just for the combos that it can pull off. To get like a Sludge Belcher stolen or a Piloted Shredder stolen
That's game over.
by Shrinkmeister Cabal. Yeah, you're right. It's like game over. It's such a big swing in the Priest's favor. We'll have to see what type of Priest Dog is bringing, but I'm a little curious because I haven't seen Dog play much Priest.
Yeah, Dog is mostly known for being a Druid player, obviously.
Yeah,
he's also known for being a Rogue player, playing Freeze Mage. Those are kind of his like 3 go-to decks.
Yeah.
But outside of that, yeah, I haven't seen him play Priest at all. Priest, I haven't seen him play Warrior too much. What else? He plays actually a lot of Shaman.
I've seen him play Shaman a few times, yeah.
But yeah, other than that, yeah, Control Priest is definitely something I'm surprised Dog is bringing the tournament now. One joke that you know, Reynad always says, hey, this deck is like 28 cards and 2 of these cards.
Yeah.
I feel like in this matchup, the Priest is actually 28 cards and 2 Thought Steals.
That can sometimes be true, yeah. Yeah, the Thought Steal against Control Warrior can sometimes win or lose you the game. Because if you Thought Steal against a Control Warrior matchup and you get like a big threat, because a lot of times it does come down to a slugfest, or at least the classic Control Warrior versus Priest would come down to a slugfest. Like whether or not you have matchups for their threats and they have matchups for your threats. And if you Thought Steal like a Shield Slam, as opposed to a Ragnaros, you're pretty much screwed. Oh, but he has the combo, the Death Lord Velen's Chosen.
So this is going to be more of the Light Bomb Priest. This Priest will probably have 2 Light Bombs, and it's going to have 2 Death Lords, 2 Velen's Chosens. Just it's less combo. It doesn't run Blade Masters. It doesn't run Circle of Healing Akanine combo, but it's generally a more minion-based Priest that I think it'll stack up against Warriors fairly well. Just putting minions on the board, forcing the Warrior to respond.
Yeah.
And then this Priest, it generally runs 1 Mind Control as well. So with 2 Light Bombs, 2 Shadow Word Deaths, and a Mind Control, there's just so many answers for all of the possible threats that the Warrior can put out.
Yeah. At the same time, though, Warrior also has a way to deal with a lot of the shenanigans that this type of Priest can put out. It has an easy way to deal with the Velen's Chosen targets, especially Death Lord, can sometimes be a liability to play just because sometimes you don't want a Warrior to have a creature like that unless you have a way to deal with it. Because what if it pulls out something big?
Yeah, usually I feel like in this matchup you're so afraid of execute that you don't want to play the Death Lords early on. But when you play them on like turn 5, for instance, perhaps right here, then you can follow that up with a Light Bomb and clear the entire board. If your opponent gets, like for example, Dr. Boom off the Death Lord, that's exactly what you want.
Yeah. I always like to play the Death Lord or save the Death Lord until really late in the game against Warrior. Because sometimes the Warrior, one of the only ways they'll win is later in the game they'll like have a turn where they just set up their combo. And Death Lord, once all the removal's gone and you play Death Lord, and you know that they don't have many big creatures left in their deck, then it can sometimes be just game over. It can buy the couple turns that you need, especially in like a fatigue war.
Yeah, unfortunately for Amaz, he leaves up a 2-1 slime here, Goldshire Footman, essentially.
Yeah.
And that gives Dog something to steal.
Yeah.
That being said, like, it's not a very high value target. You generally want something like an Acolyte of Pain or even, oh wow, that's pretty good steal, I would say.
Yeah. Pretty fantastic, and a golden as well, because the golden thought steal.
Kind of
That's
doing
nice.
a little more scouting on Amaz. Now that he knows Amaz is running those golden Emperors.
Yeah. The slime that comes out of the Sludge Belcher is basically a Goldshire Footman that didn't read the warning label on the back of the Clorox bleach container under his sink and ended up drinking it anyway. That's what it is. It turned into a green slime.
I can see that. I can see that. It reminds me of I don't know if you
Poor
watched
guy.
Nickelodeon as a kid.
Of course I did.
It
You didn't have a
me-
childhood if you didn't watch Nickelodeon
It reminds
as a
me
kid.
of a Goldshire Footman that got slimed.
That got slime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I used to love that. I had very simple pleasures as a kid. So sitting in front of a television and watching a bunch of green slime fall into a celebrity that I was very fond of was one of the best memories that I have from when I was a kid.
I think you speak the voice of our generation.
I do.
DJ.
Only 90s kids would get it. Literally. I always want to say that when it actually means something.
Now, Dog was actually considering more Death Lords, putting more Death Swords onto the table, and why not? If your opponent can't deal with one, he probably can't deal with the other.
It's
Okay,
true.
so this is actually a key card in this matchup, Anti-Healbot.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think so, but one of the only ways Warrior wins is if they Alexstrasza and then burst you down, and you can't really keep, like if you just use a heal or your hero power, it's not enough sometimes. The Warrior, if they have a board, they can just deal way too much damage with the ground combo, plus like a weapon that they can possibly have in hand.
Yeah, it's especially good now with a lot of combo decks being popular. Sometimes people don't really, well, maybe they're expecting now, but in the past people haven't really expected Anti-Healbot to be in pre. So against decks like Freeze Mage, or like Control Warrior, or even like Oil Rogue, sometimes the Anti-Healbot can make it, can put you out of range of a combo that you'd otherwise die to.
Yeah,
Like you said, hero power sometimes isn't enough.
I find it somewhat amusing that the best healing card that Priest can get is Anti-Healbot, and not like Qualifier, for instance.
It's like a card that everybody can get is also great for Priest.
Ooh. I'm actually not too sure how good that is for either player. I guess it's all right. Like, Dog can't deal with it too efficiently, right? He can't deal with it too efficiently because Light Bomb isn't that good. So why not just put more stuff on the board? Harrison Jones is definitely a great play here. Harrison Jones is also a card that's not found in all Control Priests or all Light Bomb Priests. And usually I feel like people cut a Giblin Stalker from the original list in order to fit a Goblin, to fit Harrison Jones in.
Yeah, yeah. He just
Oh,
Oh.
that's not the card that's cut. My second guess is perhaps he cut a Shrink Master or a Shadow Madness.
Yeah, that could be a possibility. Probably Shrinkmeister. If you're putting in a 2-mana creature, I think Shadow Madness is just so good against Zoo that right now you can't really afford to cut it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But we'll have to see. We'll see once we get through this. Deck, because I'm sure we're going to get through a lot of this deck during this match.
So,
Is this a turn to play Emperor Thorson? Do you feel confident enough to play it, even though you know that it's going to get removed next turn, pretty much 100%?
this is actually looking really bad for Amaz right now. None of his plays look that good to me at this moment.
Yeah.
Even playing like Dr. Boom on the board, it's not enough of a threat because Dog's board is so strong and he has the card advantage. Basically anything that Amaz plays right now can be dealt with very easily, especially the Emperor. So I guess he's just setting up for later turns, later plays, perhaps some kind of combo with Brawl. And right now, because Brawl is 4 mana, perhaps something like a Sylvanas plus Brawl can get Amaz back into the game.
Yeah. That's one of the only things. I mean, Brawl isn't too bad with the Death Lord, just because you know that you're going to be left with a creature. At least one at the end of the turn.
One poor creature.
One poor creature. And sometimes you may have wanted that creature not to come out.
This is actually really funny, the dynamic of golden cards versus non-golden cards here.
Yeah.
Because Amaz, with this setup, he can easily track what Dog stole from him, because literally the only 2 cards that are golden in Dog's hand are the cards that he stole from Amaz.
Yeah, that's true. Which is weird. Dog's usually a player who...
that hurts.
That's gross.
So he stole 2 Sylvanases, an Emperor, and a Harrison Jones. He's gonna have 3 Sylvanas in his deck.
Yeah, that's crazy.
This is like one of the best thought steals like you could ever like. This is even better than stealing Ragnaros or Alexstrasza.
And the Harrison Jones as well.
Yeah.
Like he's already used Harrison Jones to get rid of one weapon. He's gonna see another Harrison Jones. He's gonna be like, what the heck is this? Since when can Priest run 2 copies of a card? But like you said, he'll know exactly which ones he stole. I mean, if you're really paying attention, you can look to see where the thought-stolen cards go in the hand. But a lot of players will say that that's what you have to do, but then they'll forget about where those cards ended up being and never do it anyway. All
right, this is a kind of a tech card for Amaz VC that he just drew, Lotheb, and that's actually in pretty much none of the modern control warrior lists. But I feel like Amaz put it in this deck specifically to counter Rogue and specifically to counter Freeze Mage.
Okay.
2 decks that he probably knows that Amaz, or he knows that Dog will run. Unfortunately, he didn't get to draw it against the Rogue game, so let's see where this Brawl goes. Oh, the worst one. And Harrison Jones is brought out. Okay, so it doesn't matter too much because your opponent probably doesn't have a weapon at this point after using 2 Thought Steals.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Not too bad.
I do think at this point, even though the Emperor is really good here, that perhaps Dog wants to play slightly more defensively. You could also put down 2 Sylvanases. I mean, it's not a good play.
Yeah.
But it's a possible play. That's like,
yeah.
Hey, what's up, guys? I have 2 Sylvanases that I stole from you.
Yeah, you might not want to give away that hand too early, though. But now that Brawl is gone, it's going to be really tough. I like the Sludge Belcher play because there is a slight risk, I suppose. Because if you played like Alexstrasza that turn and then just went face, it would be risky, but he could put him at 5 and then threaten combo and force the Priest into a defensive positioning.
Yeah, usually like the only plays I'd be too worried about in Dog's position is like an 8 mana Alexstrasza, plus maybe a Fireworks to follow that up.
You could put him at 2 health if he did that.
Even then, though, Dog has the anti-kill bot to heal himself back up, and he doesn't have another taunt though, so maybe then Dog would be in some kind of trouble.
Yeah.
This is kind of exactly what Dog hoped for though. Amaz is like he's had no really good board clears in the last few turns. He used an Execute early on and a Shield Slam early on, and unfortunately for him, he hasn't drawn into his second Execute or second Shield Slam.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen removal. And this is so awkward because if you're the one playing a Sylvanas onto a board that already has your opponent's Sylvanas onto it, it's basically giving them the ability to dictate where all that damage goes. And it gives them the ability to choose kind of what they get to steal. Or choose where that damage is actually going to go, and it can make it really awkward for you.
Yeah, just loading up the board here.
Basically a stall tactic. He's going to try and...
The thing with stalling is that what is Amaz even stalling for? He's used his 1 Brawl. I mean, we don't know that he might run 2, but...
It's possible.
Probably not. I would say after we see that Lothar, that's usually a tech card. I don't think he's running too many tech cards in Control Warrior.
Especially 5 drops. Because he has the Harrison Jones as well, so I don't think he could ever fit 2 Brawls into this deck. It could be good because it's relatively strong against Zoo, really strong against Grim Patron Warrior. But I think Control Warrior has a decent matchup against that as it is.
Even though Dog is in a dominating position at this point, this turn is actually really hard.
Yeah.
The reason being is that Dog actually doesn't have a great way to clear this board, except for Light Bomb, which also clears his own board. Also, he might be vulnerable to something like Alex Straza on the next turn if he doesn't clear this board fully. So I actually wouldn't even be surprised if he stole the slime at this point. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So this is like the play that doesn't give him a lot of value, but it gives him more safety.
He's running out of time, though. He's going to want to try and steal one of these high health creatures. Load them preferably, but gets the Acolyte of Pain. That's not too bad either. He's okay on cards, but he would have wanted to stolen the load them.
Oh, what a misplay by Dog. Placing the Pilot Shredder on the right.
Yeah, if you get a Flame Tongue Totem out of that thing or a Dire Wolf, he's going to be sad.
So, unfortunately, a bit too late. Shield Slam is something he might have wanted perhaps like 4 turns ago when the Death Lord was on the field. But right now, there's just too many threats to clear. After one Brawl is gone, Dog has just so much safety in order to do whatever he wants.
Yeah. And Dr. Boom, he's going to put his faith in the Boom bots here and try and see if these little guys can clear up what's remaining. What's remaining of this board.
Holy Nova seems like a good one.
It does.
Unfortunately, no villain's chosen in his hand as well, so that Dog will be able to do 3 damage with that.
Yeah. Well, it looks like judging by his going face, he's gonna Light Bomb.
Yeah, Light Bomb is also a good choice here.
Yeah.
Draw a card, clear the field. Light Bomb, actually one of the only cards in the game that goes that trades well or trades evenly with Dr. Boom, I would say.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, sometimes it can trade you. Well, it's true, because the Boom bots are always... The Light Bomb's going to do as much damage as the Boom bots would do. But now he just loads up the board again, and Amaz is actually running out of cards. And Unstable Ghoul is in the way, comes out from the Paladin Shredder, so... Even if he did have an opportunity to maybe go for a just completely yellow play here, it just wouldn't even matter.
Yeah, Sylvanas here isn't even very good.
Yeah, what does he do?
Even if Amaz somehow were able to activate a Sylvanas, what's he going to steal, right?
And then you always run the risk if you play a Sylvanas as your only creature on the board and your opponent has a Sylvanas, what if they just have a Shadow or Death? And they Shadow or Death their own Sylvanas and steal yours, and then it's basically like you never played it in the first place.
Dog's drawn 2/3 of his deck at least at this point.
Yeah.
Just based off of all the off of all the drawing cards like Northshire Cleric, that you probably know that he has something.
Yeah. And if he throws Grom in here and just throws it in the Unstable Ghoul, that's just going to get stolen as well and turn around and do a bunch of damage.
Yeah, Grom definitely not an option. Execute not an option here. So it's either Sylvanas or bust at this point.
Yeah. Oh, it's just so risky. Any play that he makes right now is just terrible. Armor pass? Okay, yeah, he has to.
All right, Sylvanas and not bust, I would say.
Yeah. I think it's Sylvanas and bust, because
Look at the top decks.
Oh, wow.
Dog is like, oh, thanks for the Sylvanas.
Yeah.
I traded, you traded a Sylvanas for my Shadow or Death. I think that's a trade that Dog will take any day of the week.
And good sequencing as well, even though it's pretty obvious. Make sure he gets the attack in with his own Sylvanas first. Okay. I've seen a lot of players make that mistake.
Usually that's a card that might get you back into the game, but with the Sylvanas also on the field, and Sylvanas
perhaps
number 3. That's actually really funny, because Dog's only golden card that we've seen so far is a Sylvanas.
Yeah, it's his own Sylvanas, because he thought stole 2 of his opponent's golden Sylvanases.
Well, this is actually pretty funny because Dog can steal this Ysera pretty easily because of the Unstable Ghoul.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, thanks for the Sylvanas, I guess.
Yeah. Usually you're okay with playing Ysera into Sylvanas just because priests don't usually have ways to damage their own creatures. But yeah, this time he did.
So that's Sylvanas number 3. We're keeping count.
Priests are overpowered. They have 32 cards in their deck.
I think right now, okay, I might have even considered saving the Awakens, but no. Saving the Awakens would probably mean that
He was dead.
Amaz would have died in like the next turn, pretty much.
Yeah, because he had, what was that, 7 damage staring at him on board. If he had Desera awakened the next turn, he would have been sitting at 4. Or I guess 6 because he would have armored up, but still just really rough. And he gets an Emerald Drake, which is just another big threat that he can put out.
Interesting that pretty much Dog hasn't been using the powered shields, and I think that's pretty fair because we know that Amaz, he only has one. Actually, he's used both shield slams and both executes. No, he's one shield slam left, and that probably won't matter too much. Also, Dog might be worried about fatigue, maybe not, but he has all the cards that he needs at this point.
Yeah, Shield Slam drawn at this point without an activator, because if you remember back, Deathlord actually took out the Shield Maiden. And of course, Battle Cry doesn't come into effect, so... I mean, he's trying to think, how can I win from this position? And it seems like the only way is to, like, equip Despite. No, even then you wouldn't. I was going to say, equip Despite, hope you draw Alex draws the next turn, and then the following turn, Despite into Grom. Into Cruel Taskmaster, and hope that he says, you know what, I don't feel like healing this turn. Even though you just played Alexstrasza, I'm just going to deal with your Alexstrasza and not heal it. So it's looking grim. And of course, he doesn't have a way to remove the Emerald Drake this turn, except using Grom Cruel Taskmaster and then hitting it into the Emerald Drake. So rough.
So pretty much Amaz goes with the play that he might have a chance at winning with, but probably not. Well, almost certainly not. And yeah, Harrison Jones comes down. Even Mind Control is drawn.
Second Harrison Jones. Both of his Despites have been Harrison Jones.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
Well, the best thing about him for Amaz is like he can kind of chalk this up to a loss because of kind of the RNG in this game. 2 Harrison Jones and 3 Sylvanas. Yeah, of course you're going to beat Warrior that way, right?
Yeah. Well, he gets at least something that he needs off the top here. The BGHing the Emerald Drake there, but he's still in dire straits, and it's a little bit off.
Yep.
Holy Nova can put him at 1.
A little bit off.
Yeah. Holy Nova's going to be the play here, though, just so he can clear off this BGH, put him at 1.
You might even consider Power Word shielding here to draw into Valen's Chosen, but yeah, this is fine as well, of course.
Yeah. Oh, man. Looking for the Alexstrasza, and even then it's going to be tough. Well, Shield Maiden, second Shield Maiden is going to keep him alive for a little bit. But still, he does have 1 Shield Slam left in the deck.
Yep, and unfortunately, just Shadow Madness. So Shadow Madness was not cut. Okay. So it's probably the
Shrinkmeister, yeah. Yes. We have not seen Shrinkmeister. Been through quite a bit of his deck as well.
This priest is funny. You can't actually ever kill your opponent. Like kind of the classic priest, it sometimes has a Cockney Soul Priest to deal 2 extra damage of burst. It sometimes has Holy Nova.
Yeah.
But yeah, this priest, it pretty much bursts you for 2 mana at 2 damage at most.
It's like all reactive cards. Everything, nearly everything is some type of reactive play.
Well, that's going to be it. Mind Control will do it.
Yeah, killing him with his own Grom.
Wait, there's Shrinkmeister. Huh.
What does he cut?
That's interesting. So he has a 31 card deck.
Yeah.
Got to get the admins on this, right?
Yeah. All right, so Dog is going to take a 2-0 lead. And we were having some technical difficulties earlier, so if you're just now joining us, we'll try and catch you up to speed a little bit. This is the first match of the day. It is Dog versus Amaz, and Dog has won both games so far. He won in both against Amaz's Control Warrior. He won the first game with Rogue, which was in a pretty rough matchup, Oil Rogue versus Control Warrior. And then that second one that we just saw, which of course was that Deathlord Valen's Chosen Priest. So he's up 2-0. He's 1 game away from securing his spot in the final match of the day to try and qualify for that WCA, the North American Pro Qualifier. So good game so far.
Yeah, good games, and the third game will probably be very good as well, but I have a feeling it's going to be Control Warrior versus Freeze Mage. And it's been a while since I casted one of those games, so it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I casted a couple over the weekend, and they're kind of sad. I get a little bit sad watching them.
You know, there's an expression that's like, you can't experience true happiness without experiencing sadness first.
It's very wise.
It's basically what that means in relation to Control Warrior versus Freeze Mage is that if the Freeze Mage ever gets in a winning position, you're super excited because you know usually how that matchup goes, right?
Yeah, I can see why they call you Monk. Just such a wise statement. Yeah, this matchup, of course, we talked about it earlier. Emperor Thorsan did make the matchup a little better because it means they can make some a little bit more explosive turns. They can pack in a little bit more burst, or they can get more fireballs out of Archmage Antonidas. But it's still just such a rough matchup. I think you said earlier, 80-20 is just about the best that anyone will give it. Of course, the 80 being the Control Warrior. But you know those like those David Attenborough documentaries where he like goes and watches wildlife, like animals and plants?
Sure.
He has these sort of like sped up montages, or like what do they call it? Time lapse.
Okay.
Of plants like over time and like how they grow. Watching those in reverse, like watching the plant like shrink down and then eventually like, just go back in the ground and just disappear, is basically like watching Freeze Mage versus Control Warrior.
That's
or watching like a plant on the ground like decay and turn into like mushrooms.
It's a very thought-out analogy. I would never have thought about that, but I guess that's why they call you TJ.
That is why they call me TJ. Well played, sir.
All right.
Well played.
From the opening hands, pretty good from Amaz. Now, in that matchup where Amaz played Ignite and Amaz lost with Control Warrior versus Freeze Mage, not only did Ignite have to draw well, but Amaz actually didn't draw any cards that made him draw additional cards, so like no Acolyte of Pain. He also lost a 1-in-5 Brawl. So that's like the kind of things that need to happen here in order for Dog to win, basically.
Yeah.
2 Armor Smiths.
Right there, you can already tell that the game is pretty much over. So you can't just throw the Armor Smiths out there all willy-nilly. A lot of times you want to wait until you can. Well, I guess he throws the Armor Smith out there all willy-nilly.
Well, no, I think in this scenario you want to do that because you have no other way to actually contest Mad Scientists or like Acolytes of Pain.
Yeah.
So like you don't have any weapons, so I think that was a very good play.
Yeah, you want to gain as much armor from these Armor Smiths as possible. So a lot of times you'll see players, if they do have ways to deal with that early, like if they do have like Fire War Axe or something like that, they'll wait until they can get a board with 3 or 4 creatures and then play Armor Smith later in the game. So that way every turn they're gaining more and more armor. And it just makes turns so awkward for the Freeze Mage if you have an Armor Smith on the board, because it's so hard for them to burst it down in a single turn without giving you ridiculous amounts of armor. Like if they Blizzard while you have an Armor Smith on the board to try and stop damage, they're stalling doing damage to themselves, but what they're doing is making the warrior gain absurd amounts of health, and a lot of times it can just mean they lose.
Dog's hand is actually looking really good at this point. He has Acolyte, and he also has the key card in this matchup, Emperor Thorsan. Not only that, but he has Emperor with 2 Ice Lances in his hand, and that's actually really key because essentially he'll be able to make these Ice Lances free, and thus when Archmage Antonidas is drawn, he's going to get possibly 2 additional fireballs, so 12 extra damage to the warrior's face.
Yeah, you want as many cheap spells reduced with the Thorsan for, like you said, the Archmage Antonidas, because that is one of the only ways you win. Because the warrior will gain so much health over the course of the game that you just won't have enough damage. Freeze Mages usually have a finite amount of damage, with the only exception being them drawing more fireballs from the Archmage Antonidas. So all the warrior has to do is say, I'm going to armor up every turn, try and gain as much health as possible, and eventually the mage is just going to run out of damage, and I'm just going to out-heal them.
Now, I really like this play, throwing out the Blood Mage Salos just onto the field, and that's because Dog, he sees that he has the Emperor in his hand, so he wants to get as many cards in his hand as possible to reduce with the Emperor, and Blood Mage isn't really a card that you want to reduce in mana cost as much as, say, perhaps another Frostbolt or an Archmage Antonidas. He just really wants those key cards, those spells essentially, to combo with Archmage, because he knows that is probably his only win condition at this point.
Yeah. And it can sometimes feel like when you're the Control Warrior in this matchup that the pressure is on. Because you're the overwhelming favorite. You know that you'll never be able to live it down if you lose to a Freeze Mage. You know that your friends are just going to like log in Skype and just say, hey man, you remember that time that you lost to Freeze Mage as Control Warrior? and it happened like 5 minutes ago. One of those kind of friends. And since Amaz is in the
Yes.
Archon house, there's actually, what, 6 of those friends that can actually come into his room, pat him on the shoulder, and say, "Hey, Amaz, remember that time you lost to Freeze Mage as a control warrior?"
I think all the Archon members value their jobs enough that that won't happen, though.
Then I hope Amaz never hires me to be on Team Archon. I hope I never win a major tournament, so I automatically get a seed to Team Archon. Just because I would say things like that to anybody, regardless of their status, regardless of my employment status with them.
Well, you could say to your current employee, hey, you could just tell them that you lost with Control Warrior to Freeze Mage, see how they react.
I could.
Or just like, does your current employer play Hearthstone? Perhaps you could make fun of them for that as well.
I could. I'm all talk, no game, though, so I'm actually not going to do that. Just all words. This actually is a tough turn. He's going to have to sack the Armor Smith and Shield Send Emperor Thor's hand because you cannot let that thing live for more than one turn against Freeze Mage. That is one of the ways that you lose the game.
Yeah. Amaz had other options, such as just armoring up and shield slamming, but this is, I think he wanted to do this because he wanted to put as much pressure on the Freeze Mage as possible. Amaz knows firsthand, of course, how he can lose this matchup, and it's by just running out of cards and not putting on enough pressure, not being able to answer the opponent's threats. Also, it was turn 7 for 4 dogs, so there was definitely the possibility of Archmage Antonize into a lot of spells. If the Sylvanas was not down here at this point, there would pretty much be no answer save Big Game Hunter into Brawl.
Yeah.
And if that happened, Amaz knows, again, he knows firsthand how Brawls really favor Archmage Antonize.
Yeah. Especially with the finicky Cloak field. It's almost a guaranteed win for the Archmage Antonitis. Just tips it in his favor. But Amaz is running out of cards. He doesn't have health gain either. He doesn't have Shield Maiden, no shield block. His Armor Smiths are gone.
I think at this point, though, Amaz is feeling okay about running out of cards as opposed to other games because he has that the Ysera in his hand.
Yeah.
Now, he got one of the key cards he needs to win this matchup, Dog, that is. He got Alexstrasza, but after Alexstrasza, he basically needs that Archmage as well.
There is a possibility, actually. Yeah, actually, if you think about it, he has quite a bit of burst in his hand. There's only 4 armor. That's not a lot. If he Pyroblast next turn...
Ooh, shield block, though.
Then he could,
Shield block.
In theory, if he Pyroblasted next turn, then he could put him at 4 and have ridiculous amounts of burst. And that still might be the play. Because if he Pyroblast here, he puts him at 9. Or I guess it's going to be 11. And he still has more than 13 damage in his hand to follow it up with the next turn. It might be his only chance of winning.
Usually that Ysera's Awakens is pretty much the best dream card that you can get. But it might be a double-edged sword in this case. Amaz might come into the scenario where he is able to pop the Ice Block with Ysera Awakens, but he also puts himself in danger of dying on the next turn with that. So a lot of skill will have to be used when the Ysera is a viable option. Oh, 2 Ysera Awakens, wow.
Oh, yeah, this is just... I mean, he can probably just go for it. The one thing he has to worry about is... if it doesn't work out, do I have any ways to win? Like, if he has Shield Maiden and another shield block, can I do it? He's calculating his damage here.
I believe he has 21 damage on the next turn if he Pyroblasts now. So in total, that's 31 damage. And that's actually going to be enough.
It is. As long as he doesn't get any armor gain. Okay, so if he Pyroblasts now, he'll put him at 16 health.
Yeah, and as we can see from Amaz's hand, 16 health is pretty much all he's going to get, 16 plus the 2 from armor up.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be able to survive anything else after.
Uh-oh.
No, twice in a row, Amaz, you lose this matchup? Uh-oh, indeed.
Uh-oh.
So right now, he needs the second shield block or a shield maiden, and no...
That's good too.
Wait. Yeah, there we go.
Lotheb. This buys him another turn, but unless he draws into life gain, it's still not enough. The one thing he has to do here, he has to pop the block.
So yeah,
that is Ice Block, right? Because it came from Mad Science.
Yes, it is Ice Block. He can actually do it in a number of ways, either with a Sarah's Awakens or a Death Spite.
Yeah.
That means he can't armor up this turn, which puts him even more vulnerable to some kind of burn. So basically, at this point, Dog needs to draw into Ice Block.
Yeah.
And just turn around. And Amaz's decision making into putting Loatheb in this deck actually turned out really well here.
Ooh.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's so unfortunate. There's no way for Dog to even draw into an Ice Block.
He can't even stall time because there's a Death Bite. He can't freeze both. He's going to try and draw into something, but there's just nothing. He can Ice Lance something, but
Ice Lance your own face, perhaps.
Not going to be enough. Can't even Ice Lance his own face because it wouldn't even kill himself. He can't even commit Honorable Sudoku. And Amaz with the Loatheb on the top. He was actually in lots of trouble. Yes. There was about 3 outs in his deck. Second Shield Slam, or second Shield Maiden, Shield Block,
and Loatheb.
That was it. So pretty timely. I'm sure he's happy to have sort of escaped the clutches of the Freeze Mage.
I think he's also probably going to be patting himself on the back because it's one of those scenarios where you make a choice to put Loatheb into your deck, and it's not a common card to put into Control Warrior, but your tech decision kind of ended up paying off.
Great job, Amaz.
Yeah.
He's probably talking to himself right now, giving himself a pep talk. Great job, me. I can see Amaz doing that all the time, but Dog is still 2 games up to 1. Amaz still has to win with Druid and actually
Hunter.
Druid and Hunter. So that could be pretty hard as well. Hunter, his Face Hunter is actually going to do well against the decks that are left, or the deck that's left. Freeze Mage can sometimes do well against Face Hunter, but since Face Hunter does a lot of damage from their hand, sometimes they can just race before the Freeze Mage can get enough stall.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that matchup. A lot of players say that Face Hunter is favored, but I've heard more players say that Freeze Mage is favored.
It's pretty even, I think.
Yeah, especially if you draw into your Ice barriers early.
Yeah,
those are the key cards.
Yeah, Ice Barrier, and a lot of times what you'll do is you'll end up using like a defensive Alexstrasza. Mm-hmm. And because what happens with Face Hunters is eventually they'll just run out of cards. Yes. And if you're able to get off a defensive Alexstrasza, they're at a point where they're like top decking, then that can buy you so much time. And sometimes you don't even need that. Sometimes if you do draw into those early Ice Barriers and you have enough stall, then you can be in a pretty good position. But I have also seen games where the Face Hunter just gets an overwhelming amount of damage early.
You know, we actually don't know that it's going to be Face Hunter.
That's very true. It could be mid-range.
Amaz is actually fairly known for playing mid-range Hunter back in the days when he was on Liquid. Mm-hmm. He was kind of one of the guys who brought mid-range Hunter back after it kind of died out from Miracle Rogue dominating the scene.
It's actually going to be Druid first, though.
Druid also very fair. Druid typically one of the better matchups against Freeze Mage, and I feel like a lot of this matchup is about who draws that, or who is able to play a really good Thorzen.
Yeah.
I feel like these 2 decks are the decks that gain the most for Thorzen.
Have times changed.
Yeah. When Thorzen first came out, everyone was like, "Oh my God, this card is Dr. Boom level. I should put it in all my decks." Mm-hmm. But as people began playing around with the card, they realized, okay, maybe this is not great for every single deck, but it's certainly great for Freeze Mage, where it can reduce Ice Lances down to 0. It's certainly good for Druid, that can reduce Force of Nature and Savage Roar down to like 5 and 2 mana respectively. So just good for all the decks that are able to combo out your opponent.
Yeah, combos I think is the key word there, because it opens up things that would not have been possible without Emperor Thorsan. So there is Emperor Thorsan. There's actually quite a bit of burn in his hand that he can reduce with that, but I'm sure with the Acolyte he's going to want to draw some more. The reason why Druid is one of the favorable matchups is one of the 2 classes that can gain armor with their hero power, and every point of health matters in late game against Freeze Mage. Also, they do have quite a bit of heal, and damage from hand is the biggest. They can threaten to pop the block much earlier than most classes can.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that can sometimes force the Freeze Mage on the back foot, force him to play defensively. Pop the block early, it means the Mage has to find a way to string together another block and trying to go on the offensive. And a lot of times, if they don't get early Alexstrasza out, They're doomed.
Okay, interesting. Electing to save the Doomsayer on this turn. I guess he thinks this board isn't too threatening. Or threatening enough, I would say. Well, just more damage to face right here. Amaz really showing it to Dog, putting him in his place.
Being a very obedient dog as well.
Yeah, putting him in the backyard.
It's a very happy dog, too. If Dog was an actual dog right now, with that face that's on that picture, he would definitely be wagging his tail.
So the story I heard from Dog of how he came up with his nickname was like, Dog's account was like, he originally, he got it from his like brother, and his brother was like Dog. Like, it was a brand new account.
His brother was his dog?
Whoa, revelations!
Whoa! Crazy. This guy's brother is crazy. He needed exactly that animal. It's a pretty good story.
I know. All my stories are great.
I love the
Don't
people
doubt it.
whose names in video games are like literally them just falling into it. Like a lot of people, they're saying, oh, I didn't know what to name, so I just looked around my room, saw the first object,
Oh,
and then I named myself that object.
well, you obviously saw an Asmo Cutie.
I saw an Asimo cutie
Yeah.
standing in the corner of my room, and I knew right then and there that that was going to be my gamer name. You are correct.
I often am. So, wow, this Emperor is pretty huge.
Yep. He gets an Ice Lance reduced. He gets a Fireball reduced as well.
Well, not only that, but the board the Emperor is facing against, that actually can't deal with the Emperor very efficiently.
No, it cannot.
Especially if you do want to use the Ancient of Lore on this turn.
You always have to think for a second when you use Ancient Lore in this matchup, though. Sometimes you want it for a heal, but a lot of times the first one's for draw and the second one's for like an emergency heal.
Oh, man. So with this play, it's probably going to be that... Oh, what a huge draw. The Innervate is actually just amazing. You can now Innervate out of hero power.
Yeah. You're not worried about taking much damage initially in this matchup. Wow, he trades anyway. Huh.
Okay, so he values his health that much, I guess.
Yeah. Well, especially with the hand that he has, I would think he'd be pretty okay with just using that Innervate pretty liberally. I mean, he might be looking for bigger plays later. Like you said, values his health right now a little bit more.
Oh, but that's going to be a game changer.
Yeah.
Ragnaros the Fire Lord.
You can't freeze a Ragnaros.
You can try,
You can try.
but its flames are just so powerful.
Yeah.
He is the Fire Lord after all.
You know, Monk, it pisses me off sometimes, you know? Ragnaros, he's made of fire. You'd think freezing him would stop his fireballs. I've been over this a lot. I've had conversations with many, many people about just how angry I am at Ragnaros.
Well, it's kind of like have you ever had chocolate molten cake?
I have.
Right? So
Obviously.
usually there's ice cream served with the chocolate molten cake, right?
There is,
But
yeah.
like the ice cream kind of makes the outside kind of cold, but the inside there's still lots of lava.
It's still molten
inside.
hot.
Yeah, it's still hot, and that's what I feel like freezing Ragnaros is like. You still have the frozen outside, but inside there's the gooey molten chocolate.
I feel like I've been enlightened. Nobody's ever explained it to me that way. You've cured my anger, my inner rage. You've cured it. Fantastic.
Ragnaros, the
Fantastic
Fire Lord,
analogy.
will come down now.
And again, it is, of course, all jokes aside, fantastic against Freeze Mage just because it's always going to deal damage.
Or is it in this scenario?
Well, it dealt damage. Just not damage that was very useful. And Ice Block pretty much has to come down here because there's so many things that are going to kill him next turn. It's turn 9, so Force of Nature Savage Roar is an option. And he also has to factor in the extra 8 damage that's going to come from Ragnaros.
Yeah, unfortunately, but the thing is, if you play Ice Block here, there's really not much you can combine it with.
Yeah.
So I can actually see possibly a different play coming down on the field right now, and kind of you have to play a little risky. You can't really play around combo, and just setting up for kind of a win.
How does he set up for a win?
There's also the possibility of Dog, he just realizes, okay, I can't win in the next 2 or 3 turns, so this Ragnaros will do too much work within that time. So I actually have to deal with this Ragnaros right here, right now. But then, again, unfortunately, he can't actually do that.
The only way he can do it is to double Fireball. Because Blizzard Ice Lance wouldn't be enough. He'd still be one off. Fireball Ping wouldn't be enough.
Blizzard Ice Lance Ping wouldn't even be enough.
Okay. Well, Archmage Tinnitus we've seen is definitely great at dodging brawls, but is it great at dodging fire?
I mean, he summons fireballs.
Yeah.
And Ragnaros' shot is kind of a fireball. So
It is a fireball. That is correct.
You could say that Ragnaros, or Archmage Antonidas, is Ragnaros' father.
Yeah. Whoa.
It's not Reynad.
Whoa! Reynad is the father of Hearthstone. And Fortune is the father of Twitch chat. Well, also another thing to notice there is when he drew that Force of Nature with Wrath, he played it right off the top, which is actually pretty important because you want to make your opponent think that you top decked it, and you also want to make him think that you don't have another one. Because playing it off the top like that, of course they can see that. So just right away, drawing for one and then playing it is pretty smart. A little bit of mind games that goes into it. It is sort of a min-max thing. It may not make your opponent play any differently, but if there's any chance that it will, you might as well go for it. Every small advantage matters.
That's very true. Now, unfortunately, imagine if the board was completely clear and he had an ice block up. Imagine how good Alex Straza would be on this turn.
Yep.
But unfortunately, he has to expend a Blizzard and a Fireball to deal with this board.
Yep.
So, and not only that, again, Lotheb is drawn. Lotheb, it's not in every Druid deck. I would say right now it's in probably 80 to 90% of Druid decks, but I think Amaz made a conscious decision to put Lotheb in his deck, again, to counter Rogue and to counter Freeze Mage.
Yep.
Amaz sees Dog. It's like, Dog, come over here.
He's oh, man.
Here's a toy. Here's a chewy toy.
Still photos as like avatars for pro players in tournaments is, like, it just makes me giggle. I don't know. I'm trying to imagine what they're thinking while they're just staring deeply into whatever camera took that picture.
Well, I feel like they're actually staring deeply into my soul.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of creepy.
Amaz's is kind of creepy. Actually, both players' pictures are kind of creepy.
Yeah, I need a piece of paper to like cover it, just so I can focus a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, and this really hurts because you know that if you don't clear anything off the board and just play Ice Block, your block's getting popped next turn. Yep. And you know that if you're fireballing, yeah, that is going to be game. Exactly just the Force of Nature. And there's not too much around it. And that right there is one of the reasons why Druid is so strong, because you mentioned it earlier. What if he had an Ice Block? He could play Alex Straza safely that turn. It just can't happen. There's just a lot of pressure that Druids can put on. It forces the Mage to play defensively a lot earlier than they would against other classes. And that's going to tie it up 2-2. So Dog's got one more chance to win with that Freeze Mage.
Yep. Yeah, Dog started out the series really well with a 2-0 advantage. But unfortunately, Amaz's lineup, it seemed to just counter Freeze Mage. And I feel like if Dog, or rather, if Amaz is bringing mid-range Hunter, I feel like that's probably even better matchup than Phase Hunter against Freeze Mage, and that would pretty much allow Amaz to close it out. In the we've seen in the Kinguin Pro League, it's a tournament where both players, they get to bring one lineup against one specific player. Yeah. And in that format, a lot of the strategy is predicting what decks your opponent will run and bring 3 decks that counter that completely. For example, against Hyped, a lot of players will bring Control Warrior. They will bring Face Hunter, and they'll bring mid-range Druid. Again, just to snipe that rogue deck that everyone knows Hyped will run. And in this format, where it's just 3 matches within a group and single elimination, that's also a very viable strategy. So it could be very well likely that Amaz did bring 3 decks to counter Freeze Mage.
Yeah, against Show as well. A lot of players were bringing things that specifically countered Control Warrior because they knew that Show was always going to play Control Warrior. So it's a little bit interesting dynamic, but we are going to move into game number 5 of this first series of the day. Amaz's Hunter versus, of course, that Freeze Mage from Dog. And the funny thing is, Amaz has actually won the last 2 games with a Lotheb off the top. Like both games, Dog was Well, in the last game, Dog wasn't really anywhere near winning. But in the first game, Dog would have literally, well, not literally, but probably won the game, barring another big draw from Amaz. It's got to feel bad for Dog when he sees that load them come down. And he's just like, oh, well, the game's over, I guess.
Yeah, Dog has had some somewhat of bad luck with Freeze Mage these last couple of days. In the King Win tournament, we know that a Lore Walker Cho actually came out of a Pilot Shredder from his opponent, and Dog actually would have won the game if any other card came out of the Pilot Shredder.
Yeah. Because there's nothing you can do, because the thing that happened was he had to remove it in order to play Ice Block. Just because if he had given Ice Block to his opponent, there was no way that he would have been able to win because he had a finite amount of damage. So that just was... It's just one of those things, man. Just one of those things.
Yeah. So we indeed see that it's going to be mid-range hunter from Amaz. So it's probably pretty good.
Yeah. Jab in the King Win for Charity event over the weekend actually brought mid-range hunter in his semifinals. All 4 of the matches that he lost in the best of 7 was with his mid-range hunter.
That's got to be sad, especially because mid-range hunter is kind of Jab's deck.
Yeah.
And to lose with your signature deck, that's like
that many times in one series. All 4 of his losses.
Unfortunately, that's we did see Jab kind of he misclicked at a certain time, and he probably could have won in those certain games.
That's true, but still, it's hard to. What do you think is the strength of mid-range hunter right now? Like, what decks does it do well against? It's hard to find any deck that has an overwhelming strength against.
I think it's just a good deck overall.
Like a solid?
Yeah, just a solid deck that it doesn't really...
4 out of 10, 6 out of 10 with Rice?
Yeah, with Rice. That's important. Like, it's good against Handlock, I feel. And I think it's actually really good against Freeze Mage. And again, that's what Amaz might be targeting. The problem with Face Hunter is that you have a limited number of cards, and you sometimes just... you just run out of cards, and the Freeze Mage can deal so efficiently with like 3 1s and 2 1s. Whereas with mid-range hunter, you have like these high-value minions like Savannah Highmane and Dr. Boom, and Freeze Mage is going to struggle so much at dealing with those. Yeah,
that's true. They put out a consistent amount of pressure that's not stopped very easily. They may not put as much like straight-up early damage as Face Hunter, but you work so hard to clear a board. Like, you work so hard to prevent damage on the board that's from Face Hunter, and then all of a sudden a turn 6 Highmane comes down, and you've exhausted some of your removal to try and stall some of the damage out.
Yeah.
And there it comes.
The almighty roar of the lion.
Scar. Mufasa.
I am your father.
I think that's the wrong movie.
well, Mufasa was someone's father, right? So, no, it was the right movie. You've got it wrong.
Was he someone's father?
He's Simba's father.
Oh, yeah, Mufasa was Simba's father.
Yeah.
Scar wasn't. Was Scar anybody's father?
Well, he could have been Simba's father. We don't know. Maybe Simba's mother had an affair in that movie.
Yeah. Lion King scared the crap out of me when I was young.
I mean,
just as an aside.
The kid's father died. Like, they showed death on screen. I guess that must have been scary as a kid.
Yeah. It took me a while to, like, understand what was happening, like, the importance of it.
Yeah.
But we know that this Savannah Highmane is the father. But he's the father of... Oh, no, I guess...
No, the hyenas, he's not... Okay, that's not how it works, man.
No, it is.
That's not how the birds and the bees work. Animals, they have to be of the same species to reproduce with one another.
Yeah. I think they should have changed the name of scavenging hyena to, like, the regular hyena. Like, just hyena. And the hyenas that come out of Savannah Highmane.
Mm. And wow.
To scavenging hyenas.
Even Rag. So this is definitely a deck
that's
amazing against against Freeze Mage.
We know that Amaz leaned towards Rag in a lot of his decks, but putting it in mid-range hunter is actually something I've seen quite often. It's not as weird of a card as it may seem.
Yes, definitely. It's just okay. So the quote from Life Coach that I heard at DreamHack was, "You pretty much want to put Rag in every deck that really wants to go face, because even if Rag misses, quote unquote, misses on a minion, and it hits face, that means like, hey, wow, you did 8 more damage. Good job, Rag."
Yeah. It's a pretty good card. It's considered one of the best legendaries for a very long time.
And I would say in this meta right now, it's still like, probably overall, if I had to make a crafting guide, I would say Dr. Boom, Sylvanas, and then probably Rag, because it fits in so many decks.
I would agree.
And it's really good against like decks like Freeze Mage, for example.
I would definitely agree.
So yeah, pretty much giving your opponent lethal if you didn't Ice Lance that.
Yeah, he's running out of cards here. Every turn he's just sort of having to play the stall tactic.
Well,
I don't think
turn 8 looks
Yeah.
like Rag.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other options, but since you can't lethal your opponent anyway right now, you might as well throw down Rag just to get it going, you know?
Yeah, there's a way you can put out like more damage this turn consistently. Like there's a chance that Rag will hit the Doomsayer. There's opportunities for him to just straight up do more damage, but really against Freeze Mage, if you can play Rag on a turn where you have board control, then there really doesn't seem like any other option.
Go Rag.
Those Doomsayers have just been taking Rag hits all day.
Yeah, they're the boss. So,
is there any way out here? I just don't think there is. He's got block up. He's got Mad Scientist to maybe summon an Ice Barrier here. But the rest of his spells are burned. He doesn't have any other stall tools. No Alexstrasza either. It just seems like it's looking really grim.
even grimmer than Grim Patron himself.
Grim Patron.
Yeah. You know, like I've told you this before, but when I first heard that, that card, I pronounced it Grim Patron instead of Grim Patron, because let's face it, in the past, like however many years of my life, I've heard that the Patron used more than Patron.
Now we know that Monk is a partier. He goes to parties and he sips on Patron. That's why he knew.
Closet alcoholic. You'll see me at the next AA meeting.
That's a little more of a grimmer term.
Oh.
Partier has a more positive connotation to it, but it looks like Dog is he's gonna rope out. It doesn't look like he's playing much, but he's gonna try and figure out the best way that he can survive here. He can take out Rag with Frostbolt, Ice Lance.
Yeah, he can.
And a ping.
He can take out the two biggest threats, but now he's lost his burn. Not only that, like he doesn't have any card draw left in his hand.
Mm-hmm. He can literally get his block pop this turn, ice block the next turn, and he still won't have much. I guess Mad Scientist will pull an Ice Barrier, which could give him a little bit of extra time to stall.
I kind of like just playing out your curve as much as possible. Getting the high main on the field, just a bigger threat, and you don't even really need to fit in hero powers at this point. You have so many high quality cards, and I feel like the game's going to end in the next 2 or 3 turns anyway. So you can just equip the Eagle Horn Bow, go for face, why not? You are a hunter player as well. Okay, Glaive Zuka.
You can put him at... Oh, wow. He gets the extra attack from the Glaive Zuka and goes ahead and equips the Eagle Horn Bow.
Oh, that's really good, actually.
Pops the block, yeah.
So he needed 1 more damage to pop the block, and this allowed him to. It's kind of like equipping a Death Smite,
yeah,
and then using a Fire War Axe afterwards.
Death Rattle.
Exactly.
Archmage Antonidas is going to draw him some burn, but it is going to be quite late for that. No blocks left. This is the second block that is available. I just don't see any way off for Dog here. If he draws an Alexstrasza next turn, potentially, but there's just going to be so much power on the board. He's most likely going to be able to do 15 damage.
Yep, no way.
15 damage is going to be nearly sitting on the board just by itself.
So the good old Fireball, your old Mad Scientist, the Foursome play, of course, and then into Kill Yourself, because really disappointing for Dog here. He got reverse swept because Amaz, he really did his research. He really knew Dog's tendencies, and he hard countered that Freeze Mage 3-0.
Yeah, that's got to hurt for Dog, but again, well played by Amaz to sort of read the meta as well. We saw some players in the past week targeting at Freeze Mage because they do have some really glaring weaknesses, and it has been a popular deck. But of course, Amaz is going to move on. This is a single elimination tournament, so Dog will be out. We do have lots of Hearthstone action this week as well, and of course, we have Silent Storm versus Tides of Time coming up next. The winner of that will play Amaz, and the winner of that will be the player moving to the NA Qualifier LAN Finals, which will be happening at the beginning of June. But again, a couple more matches left in the day, guys. Don't go anywhere. More World Cyber Arena North American Pro Qualifiers right after this.